Imagine staring at a pair of $499.99 shoes. Your brain says, no way, that's a car payment. That's 3 weeks of groceries. But then, you see the tag was $800. Now $499.99. Suddenly, you're not spending $499 anymore. You're saving $300.01. You feel like you're winning. You're practically making money by buying them, right? Now, contrast that with your coffee this morning. The price went up by 50 cents, and you really considered walking out. You were annoyed. Same brain, same bank account, but two completely different worlds. The truth? You didn't just wake up with these reactions. They were built into your head long before you ever walked into that store, opened that app, or clicked Add to Cart. Once you see the glitch in how you value money, you'll never look at a price tag or your own bank statement the same way again. I'm Psyche. I study why we make these weirdly irrational financial choices. And honestly, once you see the trick, you can't unsee it. If you think about it, $499 is always $499, no matter if it dropped from $800 or increased from $200. The money leaving your wallet is the same. Still, one feels like a win while the other feels like a splurge. Or think about this. You're at a restaurant. You're deciding between the $18 pasta and the $22 salmon. You go with the salmon. You feel fine about it. $4 difference, no stress. But you might also be paying $14 a month for a streaming service you haven't used since March, and somehow it goes unnoticed. You rarely think about it. Or this one. You negotiate $3,000 off the car's price. You feel great. Smart. On the way home, you stop and pay $6 for parking without blinking. It's the same person and the same financial situation, but the emotional reactions to money are completely different. So what's actually happening here? This isn't about being irrational, weak, or flawed. It's something more specific and interesting. Behavioral economists have a name for the first part of this. They call it anchoring. Here's how it works. When we see a price, our brain doesn't judge it on its own. It looks for something to compare it to. The first number we see becomes the anchor, or baseline, and everything else is measured against that. Research in consumer psychology revealed something striking. When people see a high number first, they tend to judge the next price as more reasonable, even if that first number had nothing to do with it. The anchor didn't have to be logical, it just had to exist. When I first learned about this research, I started thinking about every sale that made me feel good. I'm not going to lie, it made me rethink every Black Friday win I've ever had. Like, I really thought I was outsmarting the system. And retailers know this, deeply. That's why you see signs like, was $120, now $79.99. The $120 isn't just the old price, it's there to make $79 seem like a smart choice. It's as if your brain is always running before and after comparisons. The first number you see sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. But anchoring is only part of it. So there's this second layer that's even more woven into your daily life. Behavioral economists call it mental accounting. But honestly, it's simply our brains being really, really messy with buckets. See, we like to pretend a dollar is a dollar. It's not to your brain. We treat money differently depending on where it came from and what we think it's for. Take my friend Mike. He gets a $3,000 tax refund and immediately drops it on high-end headphones and a weekend trip he's been eyeing. He feels great. He calls it found money. But it's not found. It's his. It's literally his own paycheck that the government just held onto for a year and returned later. If Mike had to take that $3,000 directly out of his monthly rent and groceries budget, he'd never buy those headphones. He'd think it was a massive waste. But because it came in a lump sum, different mental bucket, different rules. We do this on vacation too. You prepay for the flight and the hotel months ago. By the time you actually land, that money is gone in your head. So you're at dinner, ordering the $18 appetizers and extra drinks like they're free. They aren't. You're just operating out of a vacation bucket that you've already permitted yourself to empty. But the second you get home, you're back to pausing at the checkout screen, wondering if the $4 delivery fee is really necessary. It's the same person, the same bank account. We have these weird emotional firewalls between our expenses. And that's exactly where the slow leaks happen.
Studies on spending behavior found that people consistently underestimate their subscription costs.
Not because they're careless, but because the way payments are structured shapes how we experience them psychologically. When payments happen at a different time than when you use the service, it becomes harder to keep track of the cost. This is called payment depreciation. When people pay well in advance of receiving the benefit, they get used to the payment and feel it less over time, so the expense feels lighter. $12 here, $9 there, $16 somewhere else. Each charge is small enough to stay under your financial radar, but when you line them up, they stop being small. But let's slow that down for a second. 3 streaming services at $15 each, a $10 cloud storage plan, a $40 gym membership you haven't used in 2 months, a $25 software subscription you forgot to cancel. That's about $120 a month, quietly. Over a year, that's about $1,400. Most of us don't even see it happening. Subscription services with auto renewals and delayed billing make these costs fade into the background of daily life. When payment is separated from use, the feeling of paying becomes weaker than with traditional upfront purchases. Ongoing charges start to feel normal, even as the total grows. Because of this psychological effect, none of these small charges feels important enough to trigger a second look. But together, they definitely matter. This is how spending drifts past income, not in one dramatic decision, but in dozens of small ones that never feel like a problem. Your brain is doing something interesting here, and it goes back even further than pricing psychology. Our brains evolved to react to big changes, not slow leaks. We're excellent at noticing a $1,000 drop, but terrible at noticing $15 disappearing every month. It's the same reason people feel a stock drop more acutely than an equivalent stock gain. Researchers call this loss aversion. And across multiple studies, the results are always the same. Losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. So when a retailer shows you a price marked down, they're not just sharing information, they're triggering a very specific emotional response. The original price becomes your reference point. Buying for less doesn't just feel neutral, it feels like you're avoiding a loss. And to your brain, avoiding a loss feels better than receiving the same amount as a gain. That's why a 50% off sale can make you feel like you're saving money while spending money you never planned to spend. There's even more to it. Research in neuroeconomics, which studies how your brain makes financial decisions, found something that surprised me. Paying for things activates the same brain regions associated with physical pain. Not as a metaphor, measurably. And the more immediate and real the payment feels, the stronger that pain becomes. Cash hurts more than a card. A card hurts more than a tap. A tap hurts more than one-click checkout. As friction decreases, the psychological cost of paying tends to decrease as well, and spending goes up. I remember reading this and immediately thinking about every app that saves your card details. Design choices like that tend to increase spending. And here's the part that's worth sitting with. None of this is accidental. The crossed-out price and one-click checkout aren't just convenient features. They're built around a precise understanding of how your brain processes value, pain, and comparison. Someone studied your psychology before you ever walked in, and then they designed the experience around it. You might notice this pattern showing up in a few specific places. This tends to happen most when you're comparing options. Walking through a store where everything is displayed with an original price crossed out. Scrolling a website where the most popular option sits neatly between a cheap option and an expensive one, making the middle feel reasonable. Or seeing only 3 left on a product you were lukewarm about 30 seconds ago. Suddenly, the question isn't whether you want the item. Instead, you start wondering if you should take advantage of the deal. You might also notice this when you treat yourself. Most people have a mental category for spending on self-care, rewards, or stress relief, even if they don't label it. I had a hard week. I deserve this. That way of thinking really changes how spending feels. The money comes from the same account, but it feels like it's from a different emotional bucket. There's one specific effect that is probably the most expensive thing on this list. Researchers call it the big purchase halo effect. Think about the last time you bought something large. A car, a house, even a high-end laptop. In that moment, your internal scale for what money means quietly shifts. If you've just spent 3 hours negotiating a $30,000 car, your brain locks onto that $30,000 anchor. That becomes your new normal. So when the salesperson leans in and says, "Hey, do you want the $300 weatherproof floor mats?" Your brain does some very questionable math. It compares $300 to $30,000. And suddenly, $300 looks like a rounding error. It feels like pocket change. But here's the reality check. If you were walking through a mall and saw a $300 set of floor mats, you'd probably laugh. You'd think, who on earth would pay $300 for rubber mats? But in the halo of that $30,000 car, you say yes, without blinking. Nothing about the value of the money changed. What changed was your reference point. And businesses know this. They tend to present smaller add-ons right after larger decisions, because that's when the smaller numbers feel easiest to approve. That's the halo. Here's what this actually means. It's not that we're bad at math. Our brains just aren't doing math when we decide to spend. They're comparing, spotting patterns, and sorting emotions. Every pricing strategy, every sale tag, every subscription model, every contactless payment system is built around this process and designed to guide your decisions in a particular direction. Once you see this, your perspective shifts. It's no longer just about willpower. It's about the context you're in and the reference points being set for you. Someone who overspends isn't necessarily less disciplined. They may simply be operating inside stronger anchors. The reality is, awareness alone doesn't automatically change behavior. Your brain will still react to a good anchor, still sort money into buckets, still feel the pull of saving even when you're spending. But there is a small gap between the feeling and the decision, and that gap is where you can make a different choice. So next time you feel that quiet satisfaction from getting a good deal or treating yourself after a tough week, pause for a moment. Not to talk yourself out of it, not to feel guilty. Just ask yourself, what's the anchor here? Whose reference point am I working from? Because understanding the mechanism doesn't make you immune to it. Your brain will still run the same software. It will still compare, classify, and respond emotionally to prices the way it always has. But knowing the system is running gives you a bit more control in what you do next. Our brains were built for survival, not subscription models and dynamic pricing. Modern systems simply know how to work with that. If you want to learn more about why found money feels so different from earned money, that's what the next video explores. It goes deeper than what we covered here. And honestly, it's a little uncomfortable to watch, in a good way.